As the Russo-Ukrainian War enters its third year, the conflict continues to evolve, showcasing a stark juxtaposition between battlefield realities and political maneuvers. Recent analyses from the Institute for the Study of War (ISW) reveal that the Russian military is reportedly sustaining its operations in Ukraine despite experiencing high casualty rates. This strategy appears to be a calculated risk by President Vladimir Putin, who is willing to accept significant losses to bolster perceptions of Russian military strength during ongoing negotiations with Ukraine and Western powers. On May 13, Putin claimed that between 50,000 and 60,000 volunteers enlist in the Russian military each month. This assertion, however, is viewed with skepticism as it aligns with ongoing efforts to project a more formidable Russian military presence amid fluctuating recruitment realities. The ISW highlights that while Russia may be generating sufficient forces to replace its losses, the quality of these recruits is questionable. Reports suggest that new soldiers often undergo just 1 month of training before being deployed, raising concerns about their combat effectiveness in the face of increasing battlefield attrition. The ISW's assessment indicates that Russian forces are enduring personnel losses comparable to those seen during their more intense offensives in the fall of 2024, but they continue to push forward, albeit at a slowed pace. The Russian military, it appears, is prioritizing numbers over quality, deploying poorly trained troops into frontline units as part of a strategy aimed at making incremental territorial gains while pressuring Ukraine into concessions during peace talks. Ukrainian military officials estimate that Russian forces have suffered approximately 177,000 casualties since the beginning of 2025, highlighting the brutal nature of the ongoing conflict. As the situation remains fluid, the Russian military's tactics are also evolving. Recent reports suggest a shift towards utilizing motorcycles and light vehicles in infantry assaults, a response to Ukraine's drone advantages. This new doctrine aims to facilitate maneuverability in modern ground warfare despite the challenges posed by equipment shortages. Notably, the Russian military is attempting to standardize the use of motorcycles, aiming to equip every battalion with these vehicles to enhance mobility and operational capacity in the field. In parallel, diplomatic efforts are unfolding as Ukraine seeks to clarify its negotiation stance. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky recently addressed misconceptions surrounding a decree he signed in September 2022 that purportedly restricts negotiations with Putin. Zelensky emphasized that the decree is aimed at preventing unauthorized negotiations by others rather than barring him from exercising his constitutional rights as Ukraine's chief negotiator. As negotiations loom, he has signaled a willingness to engage directly with Putin in Istanbul, underscoring the complex interplay between military actions and diplomatic overtures. The backdrop of these developments is marked by ongoing violence on the ground. Both Ukrainian and Russian forces have reported advances in various regions, including near Toretsk and Sumy Oblast, as the cycle of combat continues unabated. Despite the high costs of war, both sides appear entrenched, with Russia aiming to fortify its military capabilities for potential future conflicts, including a possible confrontation with NATO. Looking ahead, the war's trajectory remains uncertain, with the potential for negotiations to reshape the conflict landscape significantly. The stakes are high as Western nations demand clarity on Russia's intentions and readiness to negotiate a ceasefire. As both military and diplomatic fronts engage, the coming weeks could prove pivotal in determining not only the fate of Ukraine but also the broader geopolitical balance in Europe. The enduring conflict serves as a stark reminder of the complexities and challenges inherent in contemporary warfare and international diplomacy. In the ongoing saga of the Russo-Ukrainian War, fresh developments have escalated the conflict and highlighted the evolving dynamics of warfare in the region. On May 14, 2025, Russian forces launched a substantial aerial assault on Ukraine, deploying an Iskander-M ballistic missile alongside 145 Shahid-type attack drones. This latest barrage underscores the relentless nature of the conflict, which has now entered its 1175th day, further complicating the already tense geopolitical landscape.
The Ukrainian Air Force confirmed that their defense units successfully intercepted and shot down 80 of the attacking UAVs, showcasing the effectiveness of their aerial defense systems. Reports indicate that the Russian assault targeted various regions including Sumy, Kharkiv, Odessa, Donetsk and Kirovohrad, though Ukrainian forces managed to neutralize a significant portion of the drones before they could inflict damage. Notably, 42 Russian decoy drones went off radar, indicating a sophisticated strategy aimed at overwhelming Ukrainian defenses. Alongside this aerial offensive, Ukraine's military capabilities continue to expand, particularly in the realm of drone warfare. The Bulava unit of Ukraine's 3rd Mechanized Battalion recently achieved a significant milestone by conducting its first confirmed kill using a drone-mounted grenade launcher. This development represents a pivotal moment in modern combat where unmanned aerial vehicles are increasingly utilized to engage enemy forces, directly reflecting the rapid technological advancements on both sides of the conflict. The drone in question, dubbed the Queen of Hornets, was equipped with a handheld anti-tank grenade launcher and successfully eliminated a Russian soldier, marking what military analysts are describing as a transformative approach to battlefield engagements. The drone's design allows for effective strikes in urban environments, further emphasizing the critical role of technology in contemporary warfare. As one Ukrainian soldier noted, the unit faced challenges in precision targeting with previous drone models, but the Queen of Hornets has opened new tactical possibilities. As the war continues to evolve, so too does the international response. Calls for negotiation have intensified, with Brazilian President Lula da Silva urging Russian President Vladimir Putin to actively participate in peace talks in Istanbul. However, skepticism remains, as Putin has previously evaded such diplomatic engagements. The prospect of meaningful dialogue remains uncertain, with both sides entrenched in their positions, highlighting the complexities of achieving a ceasefire. The implications of these military strategies and diplomatic maneuvers are profound. The ongoing conflict not only impacts the immediate region but also reverberates across global political dynamics as nations grapple with the consequences of a protracted war. As military capabilities develop and international pressures mount, the prospect of resolution remains elusive. Looking ahead, the situation on the ground is likely to remain volatile. With advancements in drone warfare and a continued emphasis on aerial assaults, both Ukraine and Russia are expected to adapt their strategies accordingly. The international community will be watching closely, as any shift in the balance of power could have far-reaching consequences for regional stability and global security. The coming weeks may prove critical in determining the trajectory of the conflict, as both sides prepare for what could be a pivotal phase in the war. As international tensions flare amid the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the prospect of peace talks has emerged as a glimmer of hope. Scheduled for Thursday in Turkey, these discussions are set to be the first direct talks between the two nations since the war began. However, uncertainty looms over the event, particularly regarding the attendance of key figures including Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a press briefing aboard Air Force One, U.S. President Donald Trump expressed skepticism about Putin's participation, stating, "He'd like me to be there, and that's a possibility. I don't know that he would be there if I'm not there. We're going to find out." Trump's potential attendance at the talks underscores his administration's ongoing involvement in diplomatic efforts surrounding the conflict, as he embarks on a trip to the Middle East. Despite the high stakes, the Kremlin has remained tight-lipped about whether Putin will attend the negotiations. This silence from Moscow raises questions about the seriousness of the talks and whether they will yield any meaningful progress towards resolving the conflict that has dominated headlines for over a year. The lack of clarity also extends to the broader implications of the talks. Analysts note that Putin's absence could signal a reluctance to engage in serious negotiations, potentially prolonging the conflict and exacerbating humanitarian crises in the region. Conversely, if both leaders do meet, it could represent a pivotal step towards de-escalation and a pathway to peace. The involvement of the United States in these talks adds another layer of complexity. by positioning itself as a mediator.
The U.S. aims to leverage its influence in the region to foster dialogue and cooperation. As tensions between NATO and Russia continue to simmer, the outcome of these talks could have significant ramifications for international relations and security dynamics. As the world watches closely, the outcome of the Turkey meeting remains uncertain. Will it be a turning point in the Russia-Ukraine conflict or merely another chapter in a protracted standoff? The answers may lie within the decisions made by the leaders involved, highlighting the delicate balance of diplomacy in a tumultuous geopolitical landscape. Moving forward, the global community will be eager to see if this moment of potential dialogue can transform into lasting peace, or if the specter of war will continue to loom large. In a poignant appeal underscored by urgency, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has reached out to Pope Leo XIV, requesting assistance in the critical mission of repatriating Ukrainian children who have been deported to Russia. The request comes on the heels of a significant moment for the Vatican, with Pope Leo XIV having delivered his first address from the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica calling for peace in Ukraine. Zelensky described his conversation with the pontiff as a step toward fostering hope for Ukrainian families desperately seeking the return of their children. During their initial dialogue, Zelensky extended an invitation for the Pope to visit Ukraine, emphasizing that such a visit would symbolize hope for both believers and the broader Ukrainian populace. "We deeply value his words about the need to achieve a just and lasting peace for our country and the release of prisoners," he expressed on social media platform X, highlighting the gravity of the situation concerning the thousands of Ukrainian children taken by Russian forces since the onset of the conflict. This ongoing humanitarian crisis has been exacerbated by reports from Yale University's Humanitarian Research Lab, which detailed that Russian officials have orchestrated the forced transport of Ukrainian children from occupied territories into coerced adoptions. The Ukrainian government is counting on the Vatican's diplomatic influence to aid in the reunification efforts, as Zelensky reiterated the urgency of returning these children to their families. As diplomatic efforts continue to unfold, Zelensky is simultaneously preparing for a critical meeting with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Ankara, where he has expressed his willingness to engage directly with Russian President Vladimir Putin should the latter attend. This meeting, set against the backdrop of the ongoing war, represents a potential turning point in peace negotiations that have been stalled for over 3 years. In a related vein, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has pledged to advocate for Putin to attend the peace talks in Istanbul. Lula's commitment to fostering dialogue reflects a broader international desire for de-escalation amid mounting pressure from Western leaders threatening further sanctions against Russia if progress is not made. Lula, who has maintained a complex relationship with both Russia and Ukraine, plans to speak directly with Putin to encourage his participation in the negotiations. As the world watches the developments in Turkey, Zelensky has articulated the need for an unconditional ceasefire to initiate a path toward resolution. He has emphasized that without direct engagement with Putin, meaningful dialogue will remain elusive. If he does not arrive and plays games, it is the final point that he does not want to end the war, Zelensky remarked, underlining the stakes involved in the upcoming talks. The backdrop of these diplomatic maneuvers is fraught with tension as Russian forces reportedly prepare for a renewed military offensive, complicating the already precarious situation. Analysts suggest that Russia may be leveraging negotiations for additional concessions while simultaneously advancing its military objectives. As Zelensky and Lula prepare for their respective meetings, the international community remains hopeful that these talks may yield a breakthrough in what has become one of Europe's most protracted and devastating conflicts. The coming days in Turkey are set to be pivotal not only for Ukraine and Russia but for the broader geopolitical landscape as nations grapple with the implications of continued discord in the region. With the potential for new sanctions looming and diplomatic efforts intensifying, the focus will remain on whether these discussions can pave the way to peace or if they will become another chapter in a lengthy saga of conflict.